It's funny though. I remember asking David about that scene where they're in the forest and they're driving through a
Oh
wildfire,
yeah,
a
yeah,
bushfire, thinking that, Framestore's added in a lot of the fire and the embers and, this beautiful kind of light show that happens. And David's like, oh, we did a little bit of work, but it was mostly the SFX guys
yeah.
doing this crazy thing with flame trees that are basically metal sticks on fire, and then this oil drum that puffs out embers, but made them floaty and really worked well with the convoy of cars going through. So there's some great practical effects in the film as well. And that particular sequence uses that super well. This podcast is brought to you by Befores and Afters magazine. Befores and Afters magazine is the monthly print mag from VFX journalist Ian Fales. Go in-depth on key visual effects topics with major VFX supervisors, artists and studios. Each issue covers a different area like creature animation, miniatures, on-set VFX and VFX tools. Find your copy at beforesandafters.com/magazine.
This podcast is also brought to you by Hugo's Desk Nuke Compositing course. Join today to have access to 150 pre-recorded classes, 50 hours of training, using real production assets covering industry-standard techniques with over 200 gigs of showreel material and access to a private Discord channel with over 2,300 students. This course is endorsed by Foundry and has access to a Foundry student license paid separately. Join today at hugosdesk.myshopify.com. And now on to the show.
Hi everyone, welcome to VFX Notes with me, Ian Fales, and Hugo Guerra. Hi Hugo, how are you?
Hey Ian, how you doing?
Really good. And today we're going to be talking about Civil War, Alex Garland's incredible film that made it to the VFX Bake-Off, but wasn't one that made it to the VFX Oscar nominee list. So it's got incredible invisible visual effects, and that's what we're going to talk about in a moment. But as always, we jump into what we thought about the film. Hugo, I'm going to throw to you first.
Yeah, so just to let everyone know, of course, this is part of our little mini season of the Bake-Off films that didn't really get a nomination. I must be honest, Ian, I really thought this was going to get it. I had my hopes up. Like, I think this film is outstanding. I love this film, and I think this is one of the best movies. I mean, I love most films. I think Alex Garland is doing an incredible career, but this film is something special. Don't know exactly what happened. I think the film came out in January, which was really early in the year. I think it was kind of forgotten by all the award seasons. Like, it wasn't nominated for anything, for nothing. Didn't show up on anything. No Golden Globes, no Oscars. I think it was nominated at the Visual Effects Society, I believe. I think it even won something at the Visual Effects Society.
It won a big category at VES.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And which was very deserved. This film is just outstanding. What can I say? Like, this film is really I went to the cinema to see it for the first time with Anna. We are big fans of Alex's work because of Ex Machina and because of Annihilation, and we were expecting something cool, but I was not expecting this. I thought it was going to be a movie much more political and much more about the Civil War itself, of course, because of the title. But it turned out to be this amazing photojournalistic movie. And it turned out to become this homage and this kind of like love letter to Lee Miller and to all these amazing McClellan, all these amazing photojournalists. And I was not expecting that. I was just not expecting that angle, the photojournalism and the really beautiful photos that you see through the film, the black and white photos and also the regular photos, and was not expecting for the film to be so like neutral. The film doesn't really take any side. It just shows you this thing that is happening in the United States through the lenses of three generations of journalists. A much older one, a mid Lee, which is like middle of her career, and then the very young hotshot journalist. And I loved it. I just loved it. Yeah.
I suppose it is, of course, about both, and I think the angle of being about photojournalism and having the young cub who wants to be a photojournalist and the older, photojournalist who's not even that old. That's a really great story in itself. And then to have the backdrop be this true story. Oh, sorry. This story about America. I mean, gosh, while we're recording this, it is kind of coming true.
I know.
And that's really scary. But I think about this film after seeing it twice now. I think about this film all the time. And I guess it is because of the current climate. But I also love that I love the plot thing in this, which is that it was like California and Texas.
I know.
Teaming up against the government, right?
It's fantastic. That's fantastic. Touch.
That's a cool thing that makes
the star, the 2-star thing, like the flag with just 2 stars. It's so cool that they made like a brand new flag with just like 2 stars and instead of all the 50.
I think about that a lot.
It's a nice touch. It's a really nice touch. Makes sense though. Like if you start thinking about it, like probably the 2 richest states in the United States, the 2 most powerful states, most likely, California with Silicon Valley and all the tech thing, and then Texas with the petroleum and oil and a lot of other things, of course, as well. And it's probably the biggest state. So it does make sense for it to be constructed like that, but it's very peculiar. And it's so cool because, this is a really nice perspective. He's a British director. He's not even American. And he's bringing this kind of like his external view that he's bringing over, like a global view of this event. I mean, the film was written a long time ago, as he says on... By the way, everyone needs to go and watch the Blu-ray. It's a fantastic... It doesn't look much when you look at the box and you think, one documentary. But the documentary is very good. It's
extensive.
Like a 1 hour something, 6-part documentary about the making of this movie. And he does speak about that he wrote the film a long time ago. He wrote the film now. It's been 6 years now that he wrote the film. On the documentary, it says 4 years, but the documentary is already 2 years old. So it's been actually it's funny because the script was written, I guess, after Trump left office. And so it's like through this vision of, I don't think you would expect Trump to come back to office. So he's making a movie about what could have happened, I guess, or something like that. But now we're kind of witnessing this meltdown.
Well, I mean, all the predictions are that it's going to happen, that Trump is going to seek a third term. And it's because the country will be in turmoil that they might agree to it. So, I mean, it's just crazy to think that might come true. But
I know.
But yes, as a filmmaker, Alex Garland is like my favorite at the moment. Actually, I'm actually prepared to say that, and it comes from his writing in films. But I'm also obsessed with Ex Machina and Annihilation and Devs. Probably my favorite TV series of the past 10 years, right? Yeah. If you haven't seen Devs, you have to.
I know. I just noticed, I didn't know anything about Devs at all. It was on the documentary because the main actress of the film, she talks about that because she's on Devs as well. And I think the older journalist is on Devs as well. And the guy that plays the president. And I had no idea what it was. And then I went and saw the trailer. I didn't saw Devs. I didn't know. I was not aware of this TV show at all. And I'm a huge fan of Alex's work. And I feel so stupid of not knowing what this is. But I've started. We're going to start watching it now because I can't wait to watch it.
Oh, well, don't read anything about Devs. it might be a spoiler. I also just saw Alex's new film last night in Sydney called
you
Warfare.
went to see? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's better than Civil War.
Oh shit.
So it's not at all the same. It's absolutely a take on a incident that happens at the Iraq War, which I think is a true story. Is a true story, and it's just brilliantly, meticulously told. Yeah. And it's just a completely different film, even though they're both about war. So,
and it's very peculiar, isn't it? Because it's directed by the writer of the book, isn't it? It's co-directed by it.
Yeah,
isn't it?
by the unless I've got this wrong, the writer was also there.
Yeah, it was the person. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was the person that lived through this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've heard. Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna go and watch it. I think it's on the cinema next week. I believe.
Anyway, so yes, director amazing, film incredible. What can we say? I think one of the things about this film, apart from the great story and the visual effects, which we'll get to, I think that probably piques your interest, Hugo, is the photography itself and the cameras, right?
Yeah,
talk about that.
This is a long-standing collaboration with Rob Hardy. They've done all films together, all of them. All 4 films from Alex and Dev's were Rob Hardy was the DOP, and Alex's movies have a very, very they all look different, but they all have this kind of like really realistic look to them. They're really well shot, and Civil War is a really stunning, not just because of the photography, which is really interesting to also read about it. I advise people to go and research a bit more about it, because it's really interesting that, the on-set photographer was the one that took the photos that we see on the film, the flash photos that we see sometimes, the black and white and the normal photos. But the main actresses of the movie, both Kirsten Dunst and also Kylie Spiney, they both went to learn photography as well, which is really interesting. They because they felt like, to be a journalist, they kind of knew how to hold a camera. So there's that side of things, and people should there's a really nice American cinematographer to read about it, and there's a lot of interviews online about it. But the photography of the film is really realistic, and it's shot with multiple cameras. Yes, it is. Like, main camera is a Sony Venice, and then there's a lot of Sony A7Ss, because they have this, we're going to talk more about it maybe, but there's like this really amazing car rig that they've created around the car. So they have like, the car is rigged with these 7 or 8 cameras around, so that the actors can just be acting and the cameras are just pointing at all directions, and you just capture the moment. A little bit, actually, it's a little bit like Zone of Interest. It's a bit the similar aspect in how the cameras are just positioned there, and then it's almost like a theater play. You just act out the scene, and any angle, they just pick it up. So that's really interesting, because the Sony A7 is so small, and it's really good for those kind of things. We talked about this camera before on the Creator. But the cool thing is this amazing camera that they've used. At the time, they used it as a beta version. It's out now to the public. It's this DJI Ronin 4D. And this camera is really weird. It looks like an elephant with trump. It's a massive, massive body that you hold. It's like a box, and it has this kind of like arm that comes out, and this arm is like a really sophisticated stabilization arm. It's equivalent of having a really fancy Steadicam, but on a really tiny package, because you get like the Steadicam on like a little box, and it's incredibly stable. And as I read from the DOP, like 70% of the movie is shot with this camera. And it just works really well, because the majority of the film is really, really close-ups, and it's wide. It's like really shaky cameras. It's war photography, war filming. They're using these like really, really modified lenses with f0 weight. So the depth of field is extreme. It's like, normally lenses are 1.4, 1.6, or 1.8. This is 0 weight. It's like as extreme as the lenses from Barry Lyndon from Stanley Kubrick. It's the same f-stop. as that film, which was famously filmed with candlelights. So it's like the perfect camera to do a film like this. And this camera is not out. I think it won't be the last time we'll hear about this camera, because it's a really special kind of device. It's a one trick pony, because it does everything. It has the stabilization, it has the lens built in, it has the recorder, it has the raw input. So it's like a one-man show. It's like a it's like a Swiss Army knife camera that does everything, and it's really tiny. And I think it's really the perfect choice to do a film like this. If there is ever, like, choosing a camera is always a tricky thing for a DOP, and it's always like you need to choose the best tool for the moment. But this was like an amazing thing to do, because if they use the regular Steadicam, they would not be able to, like, you see on the film, sometimes they're running out in the street and then they jump into cars and then they jump out of the car and then they go in and out. There's so many moments on the movie where the thing is so intimate and there's so close spaces, you could never really do it with big gear. So yeah, I didn't mean to, like, make this the VFX DOP show, but I just kind of, like, felt that it was really interesting, the choice of lenses and cameras, and really a great example of getting the best tool for the job, really, in this case,
Yeah, I would say of any war film recently, this is the one that makes you feel you're there with the characters the most.
Yeah.
And there is just something that Alex and Rob and the team do to enable that, sure, with the gear. But also, you are Kaylee Spaney in this film, right?
Yeah.
That's what's happening. And then you also get the perspective of these other photojournalists, especially Kirsten Dunst's character. But you were right there in the moment. And then sometimes you're not. When like the bigger picture stuff. Like certainly when we get to Washington, D.C., you get a few wide shots and you sort of get this perspective of Washington. And so you're taken out of that close-up view. I like that for a second. But mostly you're just Kaylee. And
it's the language, isn't it? The language is really cool. It's like this progressive... It's a progression through the movie.
Yeah.
Kind of, and then it just opens up at the end, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And that's a pretty amazing thing in the film. Once you get to Washington, all that build up of what's going to happen when this activist wants to kill the president, what's going to happen. And I think if all the movies that have that kind of, like, let's get to the climax and, like, let's pull it off, this one, it happens and it's still stunning and tense and just beautifully done. Yeah.
No, the movie has a huge and a really good tempo. It's also short as well. It's very economical. The film is super economical. It tells its story in such a subtle way, and you can kind of, like, hear the background radios and the background news, and you just see the environmental storytelling through the movie in such a clever way.
It's gripping. It's gripping in the way that some films haven't been gripping in lately.
No, and it's gritty as well. It's just an outstanding movie. And I hope everyone that is listening to this have watched the movie, but if you haven't, you need to stop it and go and watch it. I think. I was going to say, Hugo,
it's one of those films, and basically Alex's films are all like this. It's one of those films where visual effects do the exact job that they need to do in a film like this, which is supporting visual effects, right? And I mean, that's the award that the film won at the VES Awards. It also won, or was nominated for an Environment Award. And I guess in some war films, not like this, the visual effects can take over. Yeah. Because that's, what explosions and gunfire and fighting and tanks and all that sort of thing. I never ever felt like the visual effects took over at any point when we were in any of the locations or in Washington. Yet they also heighten the film and heighten the excitement, right? Because you do get to see helicopter attack ships, and you do get to see explosions and whatnot. So there's something about the way the visual effects were done for this film that just fits the narrative. And I'm going to say it again, Alex's films, they're all like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's ingrained in the story. I also must say that that it's really props for the A24 and to the studio that made the movie, and Alex as well, for allowing so much of the VFX to be shown on the Blu-ray, because it is outstanding. The documentary showcases a lot of the breakdowns. It showcases all the VFX that were done on the movie. It actively talks about it, and also David Simpson is on the Blu-ray all the time. He shows up all the time.
Yeah, that's David Simpson, the Framestore visual effects supervisor, who was the film's visual effects supervisor. Yeah,
he shows up a lot on the documentary. He shows up as much as the stunt guys. He shows up as much as the production design. It's really, you can clearly see there's the care from Alex's point of view and also from A24 to really respect this and really show it. And they are not hiding anything. They show it all, and it's all there, and it's all there forever on the Blu-ray, which is, I must say, very refreshing, because doesn't happen very often these days. And I was really happy to see David there all the time.
And gosh, he and Framestore did such an amazing job, because one thing that's also in the documentary, but on befores and afters, I got to sit down with David at Framestore in London, actually, and talk about the film.
Oh, it was when you were here. Yeah, that's right.
I was shocked of a number of things that they did in this film, but one of them was that they didn't shoot in Washington, D.C., right? Like, they totally went and did scouts, and I imagine they probably got a bit of footage on the sly. But the incredible thing about the Washington environments, Hugo, of course, is that it was all filmed on a car park in Atlanta, or near Atlanta, right? In made for film set pieces, and then Framestore was essentially building the whole city, but at street level often, because of the way that shots happen. And that, visual effects studios do that all the time. They build cities, and but you tend to see them from aerial views, and we just get a couple of them in the film. But here we're right down on street level, and I just thought that was so convincing.
It's what you were saying as well. It's the way that they've shot it and the way that they combine all of it together. It's so smart, because often you were mentioning that sometimes CG takes over. Yeah, I also agree with you. I never really felt that at all during this film, and particularly all the VFX of the film are like that. But especially the Washington sequence, there are several full CG shots on this entire sequence, several. The flyovers are full CG, and on some shots 80% of the plate is CG, and sometimes it's 50%. There is also one single full CG shot as well when the helicopter is picking up the Jeep in the camp as well. But the way they shot, they filmed so much. They filmed so much explosions and tanks and cars and people on the street, and with maybe a meter or 2 meters of set actually build, and they blow it up, and then they have, of course, blue screen, but they had the troops there, and the things were really blowing up, and the guy was really burning on set as well. And it's just, they filmed so much that then it becomes really realistic, because you really watch it.
That's right. Yeah, I guess there could have been a decision made to film it all on blue screen.
Yeah.
And then build the environment.
But building that first floor of set together with the stones, and together with the, especially when they're on the opening of the White House, you see the tower is there, and the walls is there, and everything in the scan is there. it's remarkable because
Yeah.
that's why it gets sold. That's why when they switch to full CG shots, you don't really even care. You don't even think
Exactly.
about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because you're just sold on the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
I watched this movie on the cinema. I had no fucking idea this was as much visual effects on these shots as they were. I had
Yeah.
no idea. I only found out when I saw the breakdowns. I was just shocked
Yeah.
when I saw the breakdowns, you know.
I reckon I probably, of course, knew that they were city world building, but that maybe they'd got some plates in
Yeah.
Washington
Yeah.
or a city that looks a bit like Washington. Now, they did film in New York for some sequences. Alex was apparently there on his own and filmed some scenes.
Yeah.
And they did, of course, go to Washington and do some scouting, like I said. But they basically shot this at this place near Atlanta called Stone Mountain, and it has this thing called the Yellow Daisy Festival,
Yeah.
and it's a parking lot at Stone Mountain.
Yeah.
And then in that car park area, they've basically built 3 sets: Lincoln Memorial, which is blown up, of course, Pennsylvania Avenue and 17th Street, and that's where the Apache helicopter comes through.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is super awesome that they built some things, but then to see what Framestore did in fleshing out that world, because their breakdown is super cool, but also in that doco you mentioned, we see even more.
Yeah.
I think that's right. You could actually call this film a heavy CGI film.
Yeah.
But it has the role of supporting visual effects.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is really, that is why it looks so good, I think. And the attention, it kind of, when I saw the parking lot thing, it kind of reminded me of the awesome John Wick 4 with the Arc de Triomphe scene, which we discovered that it wasn't shot in France at all. It wasn't shot in Paris at all. It's kind of the similar vibe that I get from it. But because it's at nighttime, very for the real as well, and very, very good filled with stunt work and everything. I must say, like, Framestore attention to detail was just absolutely outstanding. I mean, the breakdown you're talking about is really awesome because you see that they ended up doing even the interior of the offices. They did all the monitors, the keyboards, the tables.
Yeah.
And people might think it's a stupid thing, but that's what makes a shot good, because then when it explodes, you see stuff inside and you see that it's not a hollow, thing.
I don't know if it's in any of the breakdowns, but in my chat with David, one really cool thing that he shared was that in those office blocks in Washington, D.C., they realized that different companies occupy different levels of office blocks and they buy lights differently than the floor above them, or they get installed a year earlier, whatever. So the light intensities and the color of different floors is actually different. And so they even accounted for that, in the building them in CG, which I'm sure maybe other visual effects studios have realized when they've been building cities, but that attention to detail is super cool. So yeah.
That's why I really thought it was going to be nominated, because this is the type of film that usually gets nominated, like invisible kind of VFX that, because man, we're not going to talk about it today, but there's so many other VFX shots on this movie that people are not even probably aware that it's even VFX, like from the troop being ran over on that sniper sequence, which is a CG body, and they rebuild the car in CG as well, to like multiple wire work that they had to paint over the CGI bodies when they're shooting the dudes on that after that fight. It's kind of also augmented with CG. There's so many VFX shots on this movie, and of course the city land, the highway with all the broken cars as well. There's just a lot, and even of course the first explosion with the suicide bomber, the New York skyline, because it's not, like you said, it's not New York at all. That was shot also in Atlanta, that sequence with the suicide bomber as well. It is invisible VFX at its best, and it's like
it tends to be using all of Framestore's might to do what might be considered smaller scale work. But it's like they're using mocap to do some soldiers, right? Like there's some soldiers just fiddling with a helicopter payload or something. Well, they didn't shoot that. It's CG guys, but they've shot the motion capture for it. And I think that is super cool. That all
even
the tricks,
even the dead soldier being ran over on the sniper sequence, that was mocap as well. Someone is like rolling the guy on the mocap studio, which is such a funny thing. They even ended up being able. They shot it on the basement of Framestore on a green screen set. They even filmed some of the employees at Framestore to just be on
extras,
on extras on the background. Such a bit of old school there as well, with that kind of like making like the crowds with just like simple green screen shoots of plates of people on the background. It really harkens back to like this kind of invisible VFX kind of film. And you're right, like Alex does this all the time. Obviously some films that he's done are more prone to having VFX, like Ex Machina and Annihilation, but it's always this approach. His approach of filmmaking is always like story first, and the shot is first, and then kind of VFX is really the glue to put all this together, which is remarkably, you can really tell that is a person that knows how this is used and how it's done and how we can take advantage of it and leverage it, into the film.
It's funny though. I remember asking David about that scene where they're in the forest and they're driving through a wildfire, bushfire, thinking that Framestore's added in a lot of the fire and the embers and this beautiful kind of light show that happens. And David's like, we did a little bit of work, but it was mostly the SFX guys doing this crazy thing with flame trees that are basically metal sticks on fire. And then this oil drum that puffs out embers, but made them floaty and really worked well with the convoy of cars going through. So there's some great practical effects in the film as well. And that particular sequence uses that super well.
So amazing. I really thought when I saw the movie, I thought that was the VFX shot. I thought that was the scene, and it ends up being the practical thing done on VFX. And it really showcases how good of a director he is, because that entire sequence is shot on slow motion, really low angles, close-ups. Unfortunately, he's dying while he's looking at the embers, but you always intercut with these close-ups and bokeh and depth with a lot of depth of field and a lot of defocused shots. Very rarely you put any wides out, so you kind of fill up the shots with he's not showing much, and so you kind of it sells the shot. This music is beautiful. It's a very poetic shot. He's dying, so it doesn't need a massive particle simulation and a massive fire outside. A few lamps and some dudes with those ambers is enough for shots like that, because you're conveying a feeling on those shots, and you're not really too worried about showing the whole thing. Sometimes I feel that sometimes in some productions and some directors, kind of, it's like you said, it takes over. The VFX shot takes over, and it kind of like they would have done all the fire and would have seen a huge wide shot of the entire fire. It would have just been too much, and it just would not fit to the languages this movie. This movie is so economical. That's a fantastic shot.
Yeah. Awesome film, awesome director, awesome visual effects.
Yeah.
I think Hugo and I both liked it. Thank you, everyone. And we've got lots more coming your way. So thank you, Hugo, as well. Really enjoyed chatting about it.
Yeah, me too. See you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.